Hi. Sorry, I just wanted to ask you a question very quickly, if you don't mind. I noticed that you're buying like animal products. I wonder if you know like how it's produced and
like this or meat?
like
This?
that I don't know. Is it cow?
Beef, yeah.
Yeah, and that's pig, right?
What's up, Ryuji here. I'm here with Taty right now, and we just shot an incredible video on the topic of doing outreach in daily situations.
If they took away every animal and said today, we're not going to slaughter any more animals, I'm fine with that.
Taty is an incredible activist who's traveled all around Latin and Central America, opening save groups everywhere. And basically, she is one of the people that I really admire because she has outreach conversations wherever she goes. Like the other day, we were at a grocery store and I just turned around and she's just having an outreach conversation with someone. Or we go to slaughterhouses and she's just talking to like people from the slaughterhouse, and she's rescued animals from slaughterhouses by talking to people and stuff like that. So we're gonna talk about all her experiences, or rather she's gonna talk about that. I'm just gonna sit here and listen. And I'm sure you're gonna learn a lot. I'm sure you're gonna be inspired. So anyways, sit back, lock in, and enjoy.
I find it's harder to be a vegan.
What do you think is hard about it?
Just from what little I know, and maybe it's just an assumption, I can go home and I can throw on a steak and grill a steak in 10 minutes. But a vegan, I wouldn't even know.
So you know, like for the steak, you need to season it. You need to cook it.
Yeah.
You can't just like grab it right now and eat it, right?
No.
There's a whole section right there, fruits and veggies, that you don't need to do anything with it. You can basically grab it and eat it. We can get from nature, like from the tree, and eat it. And that's the food that we say that it's designed for us to eat. Mm-hmm. Like if it's something that's like this, we're just gonna grab from nature. First of all, like we wouldn't even be able to eat if we didn't have anybody like cutting it up, taking their skin off and the hair off and all that. But like we still have to season and cook it, otherwise we would get sick. Mm-hmm. So it means like we're not designed. Like, are we really carnivores? Because real carnivores in nature, they just grab their prey and they eat everything with bones and skin and blood.
You have been an international organizer for the Safe Movement.
Yes.
How many chapters did you like support in opening?
So basically all the chapters in Latin America, like South America and Central America, I try to help open, and I still support them. We went into tours in South America, and then after a month, then we realized that that was the best thing that we could do to expand the Safe Movement. And then we went into other tours in South America and Central America.
So how many like groups did you like?
I would say there's about 30 right now that around 30 that like I'm constantly getting in touch with.
Got it. And how many slaughterhouses do you think you've been at?
Oh, I don't know. I never counted. You know what? Like that's a good thing. I should probably like get back to it and like just like between like slaughterhouses in Canada and South America, Central America, and even like traveling backpacking. While I was backpacking, I was looking for slaughterhouses and whatnot. I would say probably more than 60.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So the reason I wanted to talk to you about this topic today is because I was actually inspired one of the first days that we hung out here, and we were at like a grocery store. So the day we went to like Niagara Falls, and we were just like, so this was like at, I don't know, like midnight, like 1 a.m. or something like this. We were like at a grocery store getting some food, getting some snacks, and I'm just browsing, and then I turn around and I see Taty like having an outreach conversation with like the one person who's in the grocery store and just like talking to him about like, and I was like, this is incredible. And then later, like 2 days later, we were at a vigil, and I was just like walking around, and there was a tannery there, and we were just like visiting the tannery, and then I turn around and I see her again like talking to like some of the workers of the tannery. And one thing I know you do is like you do outreach like wherever you go. So when I asked you about like even the grocery store, you were like, yeah, like you just kind of like what you do. Or I know like, so you go dumpster diving as well, and you're like, when you see other dumpster divers, like you do outreach with them. And whenever you're at slaughterhouses, you've done like a lot of outreach with slaughterhouse workers. And also like she's done things like talk to slaughterhouse workers or people who own slaughterhouses to get them to release some animals, to save animals that way and stuff like that. So it's really incredible, because this to me like really shows that outreach and activism is something that you can do anytime, and it's really something that you do like in your day-to-day life, not just like when you're at an event, but really in your day-to-day life. And even when you're at an event, always kind of like pushing the boundaries, because I know that you always push to like go inside slaughterhouses. You kind of like always push it. So the first thing I want to ask you, I guess, is like, you know, to kind of break it down into first, like, let's talk about talking to slaughterhouse workers and then like some other stuff. But what is like your mindset, or how do you think about doing outreach in slaughterhouses or in places like that?
I don't really think too much about it. It's just, I think it's something that since I quit my full-time job and I became basically like a full-time activist, and it wasn't even planned. It was just like, it just happened. It's stuff that just happens. Like, we're there. There's anybody we can talk to. Like, basically, like right here, we're at this park, and there's people we can talk to. You just approach them and start a conversation, and it always kind of leads or ends up like being a conversation about animal rights. And obviously, like at the beginning, I would talk about different stuff like vegan food, or if they like animals and stuff like that. And with experience, I guess now I just like focus on animal rights and animal liberation. But yeah, there's no secret to it. It's basically approaching somebody and treating them as a friend, and like being really respectful. With the SAVE movement especially, we talk a lot about love-based communication, and this is something wonderful. Everyone should look up for it. If anybody don't know what it is, it's being really respectful towards others. And at some point in my activism, I thought about like slaughterhouse workers, or even like the drivers of the slaughter trucks, as like part of my family. It might sound cheesy, for some people, but it's like that concept of we're all one. But even like thinking more specifically, is like, what if it was like my uncle or my dad? How would I want, an activist to talk to him? Like, I would want them to approach them with respect. What if it was me, And so I put myself like in their shoes. And so basically just ask how their day is going. It's a good, conversation starter, and try to let them know at the very beginning of the conversation, especially like slaughterhouse workers, that we're not there against them, but we're there for them as well. And just talking about like, not even talking specifically about animal rights, but talking about oppression in general, how we're against oppression, and we want to build a better, more compassionate world for everyone, including them.
And when you do that, like, because I know you've done this a lot, so like, what kind of responses do you usually get from these people?
So it varies. Some people laugh at us. Some, people are angry already, like before. It's not because of the conversation. It's just because it is already like their state of mind, or maybe like some past experience with a different type of approach, or a different activist, or any other person, like in general. But like, I would say like most of the conversations are really positive. And it's interesting, like, I guess like during the SAVE tours in South America and Central America, because we went to places where it was like completely different than what we see here in Toronto, for example. Like seeing security guards at slaughterhouses, for example, with like guns that were like, bigger than them.
Yeah.
And it's even like the local activists would, just like kind of warn us and say like something, be careful, or like we should turn around and stuff like that. And it's just like having that confidence and like being bold, and knowing that if we approach somebody with love, like the chances that they're gonna respond, not necessarily with love, but like at least like be more respectful towards us, are really high. So like just like saying, just like waving at somebody, smiling, always being friendly, asking how their day is going and stuff like that helps like a long way.
Yeah, I think that's so key what you said, because like one thing that I've always found when I talk to people is that the place that I'm coming from is always more important than what I say to them.
Yeah.
And if you say the right things but you're not coming from the right place, it never works. And one thing that I've seen a lot, especially like on social media, is people seeing people like slaughterhouse workers or truck drivers as bad people, or as evil people. And even like, I love what you said, because you said that you see them as part of your family. And I love that a lot, because the way, kind of like the step above like seeing them say as like horrible people, is I've seen a lot of people being like, oh, they're also victims of a system. But even seeing them as victims kind of takes away from like who they are. Like, it's not very nice to call someone a victim. But when someone's your family, all of a sudden like it changes everything. So that's incredible. And so in all those conversations, when you talk to like slaughterhouse workers, I know you said you talk about oppression in general, but do you also gear the conversation towards animal rights?
Yes, definitely. Like we're there for the animals. Like that's one of the things that it's like the highlight of the conversation. It's like we're there for the animals. But I mean, in that mind frame and like being really careful like with words so people don't get offended that we're all animals, and you know, like when we say animals, like we include everybody.
And so like how do you transition? Because like I'm curious, like not necessarily like with slaughterhouse workers, but say like for example you have a random conversation with someone, or maybe you like encounter someone at the grocery store or something like that. How do you personally gear the conversation towards like animal rights? Because I know that I've had like experiences where I'm like, I want to have an outreach conversation, so I start talking to someone. I'm like, oh, how's it going? Like, well, I talk to them, but then I don't quite know how to navigate that and like kind of like bring that to like where I want to bring it.
So the way that it started in the grocery store, especially, it was just like being frustrated after a vigil and going to a grocery store and seeing somebody, you know, purchasing the flesh of an animal. And that's how it all started. And I had a video that I was just like live. I had like my Instagram stories, and I just thought about like I didn't know how to approach the person, but I felt like I had to say something. I couldn't stay silent because there are animals being slaughtered just around the corner, and that person like had no idea like what they're purchasing. It's bad for them. Like these animals arrive, you know, covered in feces and. Anyways, so I just thought about like showing them what I had right there on my phone and asking them like, did you know like this is where this is coming from? Like, do you know how this is made? So it started like that, and then obviously like in other instances, and like now I'm generally like calmer about it. And but it's basically it. It's like we have, you know, like everything that we see and other activists see in our pockets. Generally, like we have like pictures, photos, videos in our phones, and it can start simply as that. And I think like it's, you know, as much as I want to like maybe build some rapport and whatnot, that can be done like super quickly, just like smiling and being nice, the tone of voice as well. But going straight to the point, because if somebody's doing grocery, like they don't have a lot of time to chit chat. Some people do have, and they get interested and they ask questions and they want to know more, which is like so like amazing, you know, like to have these conversations. But some people, it's something really quick, and I've had instances where, you know, people just like weren't happy about it and they weren't very receptive. But I think it's important to still do it. And we don't have to be rude back to them. Like we just have to tell them, you know, like just saying like have a nice day, and it is what it is, right? Like this is reality. It's just showing them the truth. It's like you have the right to know as a consumer, this is what you're purchasing.
Got it. And one thing that you said that was so key, I think, is like when you first started doing this, you went to vigils, or you went to a vigil, and then like that's when you did it. Because what I found for me is that like going to vigils really fuels everything that I do, or activism in general. Because when you go to a vigil, you really get to meet the animals who are being brought to slaughter. And when you meet them, for me, it's completely different than seeing them on video. It's completely different from like anything, because it's like it really shows you that it's real, and you face it like face to face. And so that's even what like for me gives me like the courage or even the will to like go speak up at different places or have outreach conversations whenever I can.
Exactly. And one point I want to say is that it's important to like not act on it. Like I don't think like doing this type of activism and outreach and talking to people is about acting, and you know, like everyone should be their own selves. Of course, like learning about love-based communication and being respectful, that's something that we should all like aim towards, and always try to, you know, do our best on that field. But it's like it's about, I guess it's like it's being in, it's not like, you know, like in the beginning, like we were talking about, like we don't need like to have an activist event like per se to do outreach. Like we don't need to go to a cube to do outreach. It's like it's basically like incorporating being an activist instead of like waiting for the right time to do it. So it's like it's actually being, you know, like all of this, like being compassionate, being always, because I think that a lot of activists like always have the animals in their minds anyways. So it's like it's voicing that, but in a nice way. And yeah, so that's how like conversation can start at any point, anytime. Like it could be like something very short or something, you know, that you will end up exchanging contacts and inviting that person to like come to an event with you. There was one conversation not too long ago near the slaughterhouse that we actually invited two guys that stopped and they were laughing at us from their car. We invited them to bear witness. So there was a truck coming by and then they actually like pulled over and stopped and bore witness. And at the end of the conversation, like whatever we're telling them, they were repeating. So they were like saying, yeah, these animals really suffer. Look at them. Like look in their eyes. Like they were really like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So I want to ask you about like these outreach conversations. For example, like the other day, the one that I was talking about at the beginning, when we were at that grocery store.
Yeah.
Before we went down to the gorge, and you were like talking to the guy, like how did that, like walk me through like what happened in that conversation.
Okay, so I saw this guy. He was looking at some animal flesh he didn't pick it up even, but I was just like approached him and said hi and how are you doing. Like I just wanted to check with you if you know like how this is made, right? Like how this product is made. And then he was like, oh, he was kind of confused, like what you're talking about, right? But he was still receptive. And I just started showing. So I specifically looked for Toronto Pig Safe, Toronto Cow Safe, Toronto Chicken Safe web pages, like or Instagram pages, because like showing people that it's local, and you know the footage was just taken like this week, and the exact animals that are being sold in that store could be the same animals that are on the picture that I'm showing the person. It's very, very powerful. And so I just approached him and I started showing him pictures, and he seemed interested. He asked like questions, like, and I told him that, you know, we're in a group of vegan friends, so I just told him that, you know, we all bear witness and we go on a weekly basis, and just basically like told what we do and how we collect, you know, that material. And just like hoping that he would make the connection and like, you know, have some compassion for these animals. And yeah, it went pretty well. He was very receptive, and we talked for a while.
Yeah, I remember, because I remember like at the end when I kind of like listened on the conversation, we were talking to him how like there are like a bunch of alternatives.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah, exactly. So at the end, like I was telling him, like, you see like all these options here, like for milk, for example, like you can have 12 different types of milk, especially like if you live, you know, in the Toronto area, you have all these options. And in this same store, because I'm familiar with what the store sells and we're already inside the grocery store, then I was just telling him about like the products that are sold in that store. And thinking about it now, like we could even like basically, if someone is receptive, like bring them to the vegan product, to the plant-based options in the store, and tell them, try this. I tried and it tastes amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. So yeah, you know, like that moment really inspired me, because I was like, whoa, like this is really like out of nowhere. Because usually what I used to do actually is I would wait for like sort of opportunities to take them. So for example, like one cool outreach conversation I had was with my neighbor in the plane, and that I had because like he was just next to me. But what I realized after seeing that was that like you can actually just go make it happen anyways.
Yeah.
When you're like, you know, like anytime.
Yeah.
So now talk to me about moving away from this, because I know what you've done in many places when you went on your tours and you went to different slaughterhouses. You would talk to them, and this is a question I get sometimes where people ask, like, how do you rescue animals from like slaughterhouses? And I'm like, well, there are two ways. Otherwise, either you talk to them and you get them to like surrender animals, or you just take them. Like somehow. We're not going to talk about that one today, but like, how do you talk to people, or like how do you make that happen when you're in that situation? Like, how do you get them to like give you animals?
That's a very common question that we get, especially like after the tours and rescuing animals during the tours, like going to these unknown places, this slaughterhouse for the first time in our lives, and like walking out with an animal in our arms. And the answer is pretty simple. You just ask. All you do is just ask. You know, like people ask us like, how did you get inside slaughterhouses? Just walk in. How do you tour that? How do you get a tour inside the slaughterhouse? You just ask for it. You know, and like sometimes it's so easy. Like it's just obviously like there's, you know, different type of places. Like if the places were, the slaughterhouses were very big, like part of like a, you know, international type of business or whatnot, then it's harder. But we could still go in, like give our information, like documents and whatnot. But yeah, in regards to rescue, yeah, it's simple as that. And I think that being present at these places, this is what I love about the Save movement too. It's like you're present where the animals are. So like the possibilities are endless. Like what we're gonna see, what we're gonna witness, you know, sometimes it could be worse than like having to sneak in the middle of the night inside a factory farm, because we see dead animals, we see them in horrible conditions. And also like in regards to rescues, you know, like they're right there, so like why not ask? Like every single vigil, like this is something that I'm trying to, you know, incorporate even like in Toronto, because it's a different environment, I guess, for me, like when I'm on a tour and kind of like leading the way with my partners, or being in Toronto where somebody else is an organizer and we kind of like also want to be respectful of the space and whatnot. But this is something that it's not breaking any rules, it's just like having dialogue. It's very simple, you know. So like in Costa Rica, for example, we went to a slaughterhouse and we didn't see as a good place to have vigils because they only received maximum of 2 trucks per day, and it was very, very early in the morning and it was far from where the activists lived. So we saw the opportunity to have a rescue, and we went in there, we asked for a tour, they asked what we're doing, and we generally like say exactly what we're doing. So we're on a tour with the Save Movement, it is an animal rights organization and whatnot, but then within like the conversation you kind of just feel like, should we say everything or not? I'm a horrible liar, so it's like I don't lie, but like if you can omit some stuff. So like at that instance, for example, like it just said like we're traveling and working, we're visiting slaughterhouses and we work with animals. And then the lady would be like, oh, but you guys are students, like what do you work with, are you vet? No, like we're traveling, you know, we work with animals and we're visiting slaughterhouses in all Latin America. And she's like, okay, come back on Monday. Like, and we had this tour, and then during the tour, like we got a lot of information that I guess helped at the end of the tour to rescue a chicken. For instance, she told us that the small and sick injured animals were just put aside, like basically they were thrown like in a bucket and to be turned into either pet food or like canned food, stuff like that. So there is little to no value, I guess, like to their bodies. And that helped us at the end when we finished the tour, and she didn't even know we were animal rights activists. We asked for a chicken, and at first she was like, oh, there's a butcher shop down the road, you should just go there. And we're like, no, we want like live chickens. And then she's like, let me make a phone call. And then some activists were like, oh my gosh, we're in trouble. No, it's okay, like just chill, you know, like we're being like very polite. There's no way like we're gonna get in trouble. And then she came back with a price, and we told her we wouldn't pay, and then it clicked, you know, like if those animals don't have any value, so let's ask for that. And that's what we did. We asked for like, just bring us like the smallest chicken you have, or if you have anyone that's sick or injured. And that's what she did. And we ended up getting out of there like after horrible and this is the one thing, right? Like when you visit like the slaughterhouse or farm, like it's very hard, you know, it's heartbreaking. So getting out of these places, like at least with one life in your arms, like it's really empowering. And I think everyone should try to do that. Everyone should ask for animals. Everyone should, even if they know that they're not gonna get, even if they've been told like 10,000 times that no, they don't release animals, just keep asking, because it's empowering for the activists, a good practice. And it also shows, you know, to people, to be it employees or passerbys or whoever it is, even other activists, that, you know, like things can happen just by, and we should be speaking up, even if we know that, you know, the chances are little, like we should still speak up.
Yeah, so that's incredible. I think like a lot of people, what I really want to ask you now, because like that was just so inspiring, and I'm like, that's incredible. What is your personal motivation or inspiration, or what empowers you, do you think, in those moments? Because I'm sure a lot of people could listen to this and they're like, wow, that sounds awesome, And maybe you get this too where people are like, oh, that's so awesome what you do. I wish one day I could be like you, or like, you know, I couldn't do that myself, or something like that. So what empowers you to, in those moments that are sometimes perhaps uncomfortable or difficult, what empowers you to go ask or do the thing that might make a difference?
I think it's basically, it's the animals, you know, like it's looking in their eyes, knowing what they're going through or what they're about to go through. At this visit that we just talked about, for example, there was a chicken that jumped out of the crate, right like where they had a pile of crates, and then they hang the chickens upside down to go in the line to get slaughtered. And there was one that came out and it was running around, trying to run away. And it's like, it's the animals, you know, like that's, I think it's the one thing that's at the top.
Awesome. Cool. So this is incredible. Is there anything else that you would like to say on any of the topics that we talked about, or anything else that you would like to leave people with who are probably like vegan or vegan activists that, like anything you want to tell them?
Don't be afraid. If somebody, like I know that some people, they're afraid of like being judged or maybe like being seen as crazy or anything like that. Like, don't be afraid. If you know, like in your heart that you're doing the right thing, and just be bold. Yeah, basically it.
Yeah, so it's awesome.
Don't be afraid to speak up, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. The few things that I really got out of this that I think is incredible is, first thing, just always ask. And always try things.
Yeah.
Whether it be asking for an animal, whether it be asking for a tour inside a slaughterhouse, whether it be having an outreach conversation. Because the second thing that I got out of it is that you just never know like what's gonna happen, and you never know who those people are too.
Yeah.
Because like at the end of the day, like you said, the way that you see everyone as your family, you can never know who's gonna be receptive, who's not gonna be receptive. You have no way of knowing. And I feel like oftentimes it's very easy as human beings to prejudge the people that we talk to. For example, you see someone buying meat in a grocery store and you already have this like image of who they are. Or perhaps you go to a slaughterhouse and you meet slaughterhouse workers and you already have this preconceived notion of who they are. Yeah. But you really don't know, and everyone's just a person. And exactly. I think it's very easy to forget that. But yeah, like, so you just never know like when people are gonna be receptive. You never know what you can make happen, so you should always try. And
this is a really important thing too, like not just like, you know, speak up, but speak up like with a loving, compassionate way. And really, like, if someone is not at the right place just yet, you know, they should just try to exercise that. And if they see that they're getting like, even myself, like if I'm getting frustrated or angry, I just take a step back. There's like so many opportunities every single day. You can just basically go out like doing grocery, doing laundry, whatever it is. There's so many opportunities. So like if somebody, you know, rejects the information at that moment, it's okay. Like, you do what we can. But yeah, don't, another thing that I would say is like, if you feel like, you know, you're getting nervous or a little bit angry or frustrated, it's okay to take a step back and just make sure that whenever we speak up, like, to be as compassionate as possible and really like see everyone as we're on the same side. We all want to live like in a compassionate, beautiful world for everybody. We all want to be happy. We all want to be safe. So like, just keep that in mind and try to, you know, bring that into the conversation.
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing too, to kind of piggyback on that which is what I do when I talk to people, not just in outreach, but in any situation really, is that I understand that I can only control what I do. You can't control how people are going to respond to you, but I can control like how I'm being or what I'm saying, or, you know, like that I can control. So for me, my version of success when I talk to someone, I never judge it based on like how the conversation goes or like the outcome of the conversation, because ultimately I can't control that. Yeah. I can't control like whether that person goes vegan like when I talk to them. So you know, because if you do judge yourself based on the actual results that you have, it's so easy to like get down, because not everything is gonna go well. But for me, I always judge myself, or I don't really judge, but for me, I'm just happy that I did the conversation, that I just pushed myself to like go do that, because at the end of the day, like, it's the only thing that I can control.
Exactly, and we don't want to burn out too. So it's like, it's good to end the conversation in a good, nice tone and go home and like, you know, keep smiling, not like, you know, get angry all of a sudden and get pissed and frustrated.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so thank you so much for this incredible these incredible words and these incredible stories. I'm sure you're very inspired. So thank you so much for watching this video. We really appreciate it. And until next time, peace. That was incredible.
Oh my god.
That was so awesome. Holy fuck. That was so awesome. Like, oh my god. That was incredible. I can't even